With now just 6 states left to be called by NBC News, a clearly flailing Donald Trump is asking for a recount in Wisconsin, all the while filing a lawsuit in Michigan to halt the counting of ballots there. Let's bring in MSNBC's Ali Velshi at the big board for us. Ali, I'm so thrilled that you and Steve Kornacki, two of my favorite humans, are both the two big board whisperers. Take me through with these two calls this morning due to this race, Wisconsin and Michigan.
It's a very big deal. Let's take a look. This is your electoral map right now. We're still waiting for Alaska. That'll be a while. Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina has told us you're not getting any more numbers till November 12th, so we're going to sit on that. Pennsylvania says everything will be counted by Friday night. The Secretary of State says earlier. But here's what we got right now, 253 to 214. Let's take a look at the paths to victory. Joe Biden has 9 combinations of things that can happen to get him to 270. Donald Trump now has 3 left, and one of those paths, by the way, ends up in a tie. Now, let's take a look at what we're actually worrying about here. I want to go back out to what's outstanding in Nevada. You have a situation where we have 86% of the votes in. Biden is leading by 7,000 in the entire state, but there's 202,000 votes outstanding. So that is very much in play. Let's take a look at Nevada, at Arizona. 86% of the votes are in there. Biden leading by 93,000, but 432,000 votes are available in Arizona. So that's very much in play. So if you go back to the road to 270, let's just, for sake of it, let's leave Pennsylvania out of it for a moment, and let's say North Carolina, because we're not going to hear about it for a while. Let's just give that to Donald Trump. Let's even give Atlanta to Donald Trump, although a lot of votes not counted there. These two, Biden has a statistical advantage in, Nevada and Arizona. So I'm going to give Alaska to Donald Trump, too. Let's give Biden Nevada. Let's give Biden Arizona. Biden gets to 270 without Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's going to be hard to figure out. So that's just one example of the type of path that Joe Biden has. Again, we're going to wait on North Carolina for a while. We're going to wait on, well, we may get numbers from Georgia later on today. But that's how that changes the dynamic. And as you've been talking about since yesterday, the outlying, the places that don't have the votes in Nevada, in Arizona, in North Carolina, in Georgia, and in Pennsylvania are all places that would be heavily favored, that are heavily favoring Joe Biden. So the bottom line is, if those trends continue, these two look pretty safe. These two are a little unclear, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. Pennsylvania remains a very tricky one. As you know, the Trump campaign has declared victory in Pennsylvania. Twitter has put labels on those tweets to say this has not been called. They're getting involved, as you just discussed with Neil, in Supreme Court matters there. So Pennsylvania, the issue is there a road to victory without Pennsylvania being called for a while? And for Biden, the answer is yes.
Ali Velshi, you just went the farthest toward explaining Trump's legal strategy that I've heard since I was on for 12 hours last night. The remaining vote, largely, generally, and there are no monolithic counties or no monolithic neighborhoods, but by and large, it is viewed as Biden vote. So is it your sense that the legal strategy of stopping the vote is because Trump knows this is only going to get worse for him?
The one place this is interesting is the one place I spend a lot of my time, and that is Pennsylvania, because a lot of the vote is in Allegheny County, in Pittsburgh. A lot of it is in Philadelphia County and the neighboring counties. Take a look at this one, Bucks County. This is kind of unusual. North of Philadelphia. This shouldn't be trending this way. 81% is in, and Donald Trump's leading Joe Biden, but there's still 76,000 votes out there. So the Trump people are saying there's lots of little pockets of votes in all this red stuff that could put them over the top. May be true, may not be true, but we need to see Allegheny County, we needed to see Philadelphia County, and that's what we're waiting for the next 48 hours. But they are claiming it's all the little places that have 500 votes and 1,000 votes where they can win that adds up to a victory. And the fact is, we have seen in the election of 2016, in a lot of places, that did make that difference.
Ali Velshi at the big board for us. Thank you so much, my friend. Let's bring into our conversation Jonathan Lemire, Associated Press White House reporter, and lucky for us, an MSNBC political analyst. Tim and Jason are still here. Lemire, take me through what last night was in terms of what your expectations were for it going in.
Well, I think in many ways, Nicole, it played out as expected. We knew this was going to be a close race, and I think that we also knew and had been warning everyone that there could be a scenario where Donald Trump jumped out ahead on Election Day. Those in-person votes that would be counted first would largely be Republican, because he had been urging his people, his supporters, to come to the polls. And certainly that's that red mirage, if you will. And certainly that was the case last night. And look, the Biden camp had certainly had hopes for Florida, which didn't happen, although they had grown pessimistic in the few days before Election Day. And they've tried to push in to some states like Ohio and Iowa and Texas to try to deliver that early knockout blow. Those weren't meant to be. But their focus all along, and the Biden camp deserves credit for this, this was a very disciplined campaign. They largely ignored the noise, they ignored Twitter, and they focused on getting to 270. And now it seems like they're on the precipice of doing so, as they've won 2 out of the 3 of those former blue wall states that Trump won in 2016. They've got Wisconsin now. They've got Michigan, and they're just a victory or 2 away from claiming the White House.
You know, and then take me through, I agree with all of that. And I think on like hour 10 last night, I said, look, this isn't an Aaron Sorkin script. It wasn't going to be a blue landslide. There are not 49 states that either party will ever win again in this country. And they were almost singularly focused on those 3 states plus Arizona, really, in the final days of this. Will you take me through the Trump version of that? Because your reporting in the Times seemed to indicate that they were relatively clear-eyed as well and saw a very narrow path to 270, which is why they started conditioning their base for a legal fight.
That's exactly it. I mean, yes, there are some Democrats who are a little disappointed today, despite Biden seemingly on the verge of a victory, because it looks like they're not going to flip the Senate. They lost seats in the House. It wasn't this repudiation of Trump, this thorough rebuke of everything he stood for. That's not happening. But it does look like, at the end of the day, Donald Trump could very well be a one-term president. In terms of the president and his supporters, yes, they've known for a while now, particularly since the president's COVID diagnosis and his disastrous first debate performance, that they had a pretty narrow path. They were going to need to sweep the Sun Belt and then pick off one of the Great Lakes states. It was going to have to be Pennsylvania to make the math work. And they've had, look, they got the win they needed early in the night in Florida. They feel good about where they are in Georgia, North Carolina, more North Carolina, honestly. But both of those are still outstanding. They feel like they can still get those. And now, of course, we're hearing the legal challenges. There have been some networks and the Associated Press that have called Arizona for Joe Biden. The Trump campaign is furious about that and is threatening legal action. We've seen the campaign also sue to try to stop the count in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. The Trump campaign declared victory in Pennsylvania. That's not how this works. No one has declared victory for Pennsylvania yet, and certainly the Trump campaign's not able to do so. But yes, at this moment now, they see that their path is exceedingly narrow. There's a sense of, I talked to some people inside the West Wing of the Trump campaign, there's a degree of real frustration here, of resignation, a bit of a flailing about, as they just sort of throw one thread of legal action after another at the wall and hope something sticks to change their narrative of this race.
And Tim O'Brien, there is not an older story in the Trump repertoire than litigating his way out of battles. And I remember being rather amused when I read more recently that at one point he wanted to settle with Bob Mueller, who was investigating, of course, the attack on America's democracy by one of our most brutal adversaries. I mean, just talk about how true to form this is, that Trump wants to sue his way without merit to a second term.
You know, he learned at Roy Cohn's knee that you don't need to actually go to court to weaponize the legal system in your favor. And he spent years threatening people with lawsuits to great effect, whether they were business competitors or the media. And he has telegraphed his desire to do this for months now. I think both campaigns, where we are right now, today, in this campaign, both in this election, both campaigns telegraphed where we would be right now. And Trump knew once COVID hit and the economy started tanking that he was in serious trouble, and it only got worse as the months went on. We've seen it did not get as bad as we thought it would, but he did see that it was an existential threat to his presidency. And what Trump does in situations like this is deny reality, put the responsibility for losing on someone else's shoulder and try to sow doubt about the legitimacy of everything around him. And he loves to do it through lawsuits. In some ways, he's well situated in these states where they're going to contest this. The state legislatures are controlled by Republicans. There's divisions with the governors. The governors are Democrats. But I don't think he's going to get anything done in the courts here. And as we said before, what this is for him is essentially someone who, when he can't get his candy, is willing to burn the store down. We've known that about Donald Trump. He's demonstrating it, and we should just have faith in our institutions to be able to handle this one, which I think they will.
You know, and Jason, I think you could forgive those of us who are nervous for our institutions as we've watched them be burned down one after another, like dominoes falling so fast. It made your head spin. How are you feeling about that scenario that Tim O'Brien just laid out, Jason?
I think that's likely. I think that Trump's sort of his legal fights right now, if he wanted to stop the vote, he should have started that yesterday. I really don't think they have much of a path there. I know he tries, he assumes that every single government agency is actually working for him, and they don't. And I think that what we'll see, if these counts continue the way they are with 400,000, 300,000, possibly in Georgia, you know, you're going to see Trump land, and sort of Trump go through sort of the stages of mourning, right? They'll deny what's going on, then they'll be angry, and then you're going to see people starting to bargain, like, well, we'll leave office if you don't prosecute us. Like, I suspect that we're going to see that in the coming weeks if this count continues the way it goes. But again, it just goes to show we have so much work to do in this new administration, if they come to power, in restoring the virtue and the integrity of these agencies. We still have a court case about the post office in DeJoy with 300,000 ballots that are sitting in a pile somewhere underneath, you know, catalogs and Target inserts, right? We have to go back and repair all of these different institutions that the president has destroyed. And then lastly, and I think this is key, if there's one thing that this entire process has shown, for every person who was upset and frustrated, like you and I, Nicole, everybody last night who was like, oh my gosh, when are we going to find out the wait? It reminded me of all the Americans who had to wait 6, 7, and 8 hours in line to vote. We're complaining about it took us 24 hours to get an answer about the election. There are Americans who spent a quarter of that time just to get a right to be in this process. The new administration, if we have one, has got to do something about voting rights and voting suppression in this country, because we shouldn't be in this situation. I know the Electoral College is a pipe dream, but something needs to be done about the kind of voting and counts that we've seen across this country.
It's a travesty that there isn't even an expectation that that'll be among elected officials a bipartisan endeavor. Lemire, I want to give you the last word. Tell me who wrote that speech last night, and did anyone think it went well or was a good idea? Chris Christie blasted it. Rick Santorum, a very Trumpy right-wing dude over on CNN, blasted it. Did they think it was good?
This was the president's idea, of course, and the usual team of writers, including Stephen Miller and Jared Kushner, had a hand in it as well. He had been telegraphing this for a while, Nicole, that he was going to get out there and declare victory. Their hope, the Trump team, was to just make things close enough where they could throw it to the courts. Let's remember, of course, the president has appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, including one who took her seat just in the last couple of weeks. But, of course, the key was to keep it close enough for that to happen. And what we're seeing now are potentially these margins that Joe Biden is putting up may be too significant to overcome. But that's where the Trump White House and their campaign is focused right now. They want to try to stop the courts. They want to still feel like they need to try to win these 2 states in the Southeast, maybe Pennsylvania. That looks like an uphill climb. And then just hope for the best in the courts. But Joe Biden right now, clearly, in that speech we just heard, he's projecting. He's ready. He's not declaring it yet. He's not taking it. But he's ready to be president and start leading.
I just can't let this end without buttoning it by saying that the fact that it just goes unremarked, that there is a presumption that he has succeeded in corrupting the United States Supreme Court, that was the strategy. That I'm just going to take my losing electoral effort to the Supreme Court, which I'm pretty sure I've already corrupted, is so colossally disgusting. We'll have to stick a pin in that and unpack that another day, because whether he wins or loses, they take that taint with them all day, every day. Jonathan Lemire, Tim O'Brien, Jason Johnson, thank you so much, my friends, for being here on a day like this. Up next for us.